Hello YouTube, welcome to Shad Life. I have a few updates, and so I'll just do the usual and put a timeline in, or yeah, where you can just click the link and go right to the video segment you're interested in. So let's start off first with this past weekend. I went up to Cuyuna. I invited a bunch of friends and they came up there and we hung out and rode and did some cooking over the fire and so on and so forth, socializing. It was a good time. I didn't do a ton of filming, but I did get some clips of the riding. This riding is in a trail called Bison Run and Dynamite. So Dynamite is a little extra segment off of Bison Run that's considered, like more like a black trail, and Bison Run is like a blue. I consider Bison Run like a dark blue. It's pretty challenging in some spots. But yeah, here's those clips of my friends doing some riding in Cuyuna. Really short here. Nice. I don't even think you landed on the downside. Nice. That was like total racer jump. That rock garden. Oh. Nice. After all this riding, it's party time. Woo-hoo!
Says the guy that didn't go biking.
Says the guy that didn't go biking. Oh, by the way, you have to check out this extra small surly low side. Since people on my channel are low side lovers, that thing's so cool. Totally, it looks like a DJ bike. Been riding the Jaffe today. Lots of mosquito prevention devices because the mosquitoes, especially later on in the evening, get really. So that was a blast. I appreciate them coming up and hanging out, and it's pretty cool. And I want to do more of this. So if you're, in the area anyway, and want to come up and hang out in Cuyuna, let me know. So the next thing I want to talk about is the fact that I've actually done quite a bit of riding this spring. So we had that kind of late winter, that delayed riding, but I was in Bentonville in March, and then I rode through to Colorado, and now I've been up to Cuyuna a few times and rode locally quite a bit and stuff. And I'm really loving the hardtail. And you all know about this bike because I've been talking about it all winter long. And this is the MX build, so 29 front, 27.5 rear. I threw gears on it so I could ride it in Cuyuna a little easier, and so on and so forth. Loving this bike, and this past weekend I rode the Jaffe, and I'm loving this bike. But what I'm realizing is for most of my riding, I don't need a full suspension bike. And it's really got me kind of thinking about, well, what is a full suspension bike for? So I'm going to talk about that right here and right now. So to me, a full suspension bike is for two kind of different purposes or type of riders, right? So you have riders that want to go really fast over technical terrain or downhill or things like that, and the suspension helps take a lot of those hits and things, because as you increase speed, the suspension absorbs those hits, as where if you don't have suspension, you can get bucked and things like that. Granted, if your suspension is set up right. The other kind of rider that full suspension is good for, or that I know they like, are people who don't really want to do a whole lot while they're riding their bike. Their main purpose is they want to be able to pedal and pedal over stuff and whatever, and mostly be seated, and they don't want to take the time to learn how to take control of the bike. I call the pilot or the passenger. There's a lot of passengers, and believe it or not, I'm not criticizing you for wanting to be a passenger. It's a different style of riding. That's why I asked the question, do you want to be the pilot or do you want to be the passenger? If you want to be the passenger on a bike and you're riding a full suspension bike, your suspension's set up the way you want it, you can stay seated and pedal through that rock garden and so on and so forth, and the bike will, you know, right over it, right? 29er wheels will help you do that, so on and so forth. But then there's riders like me who want more control over the bike. And even with my full suspension bike, I have it set up. It's a 27.5 wheel. It's a 130 rear, 150 front, and so on and so forth. It's not a huge, big suspension bike, because I still like to take control of the bike and things like that. But what I'm finding, the more and more I've been riding these hardtails, is that for most of the riding that I do, having a rear suspension is overkill. And so I'm really liking the Jaffe and the Hayduke for that. And I have a Hayduke tie there. And yes, I have ridden that this year, even though I haven't done a video on it. So that's my take on full suspension. So if you are, you know, a mountain biker and all you have is full suspension, I highly recommend getting a hardtail, because that'll up your game a bit. It'll teach you those more dialed skills and teach you more about how to be in control of your bike, because you have to be in control of your bike. You don't let the bike do everything for you. And then if you're new to mountain biking or newer, when it really comes to spending money, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck out of a hardtail than you will a full suspension bike. Like, you can get a full, pretty much top of the line hardtail for $3 or $4 grand, where like a full top of the line full suspension bike is going to cost you 7, 8, 9 grand, right? Or even I've seen some in the 12, 13, but that's kind of ridiculous. But unless you're talking like full on carbon, whatever race bike, but for the most part, you're going to get a better deal with a hardtail. And if you're more in that entry price point and you want like an entry level bike, you're going to get a much better bike for around $1,000 if you go hardtail, anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500, or even $1,000 and $2,000. If you get a full suspension bike in that price range, there's a lot of corners cut. It's going to have low-end components. The shocks aren't going to be very good quality. They're not going to have all the fancy suspension valving and damping and all that stuff that the higher end suspension. So really, to get a decent entry level full suspension bike, in my opinion, that's going to actually do what a full suspension bike should do, you got to get closer to that $3,000 price point. Otherwise, you're getting the base level shocks, and they don't ride quite right. Now, the exception to that, of course, is if you do live in a region where you are in the mountains, or you've got a lot of gnarly downhill runs, or you're doing lift access mountain biking, things like that, then you pretty much kind of have to go with full suspension, especially if you're a more entry-level rider, because you really need it, because that's that higher speed kind of stuff that I'm talking about. But really, I really push people to get into the hardtail first and learn how to ride a hardtail really good. And the really nice thing about hardtails is they're less maintenance. They cost less, for even if you get higher end components and stuff. And your power goes directly to the rear wheel. As much engineering and fancy stuff they do to full suspension, and this bike climbs and rides really good, you're never going to get the connection you get drivetrain wise that you get with a hardtail. A hardtail is there's nothing flexing or giving or doing anything or taking any power away, and I really like that about hardtails. And I do a lot of standing and powering up things and over things and things like that on the hardtail because I like to take control. And when I do stand, the bike just goes. It doesn't bob up and down or do anything funky. So hardtails are awesome, and I feel like the bike industry really wants to promote their full suspension bikes, push you into full suspension and things like that. And I just don't feel like, I feel like probably 85% of mountain bikers don't need full suspension. I mean, it's my opinion. Sticking with it. Okay, so the MS-150 is coming up this weekend. So it's Monday right now, and Friday is when we bus up to Duluth, and the Saturday morning we start a ride. We do 75 miles for each day, so we do 75 miles to Hinckley, which is about the halfway point, and then another 75 miles on Sunday to just north of St. Paul here in Minnesota. I did it last year. It was fun. It's a fundraiser for multiple sclerosis. You might have seen a short that I did asking for donations to it and so on and so forth. I'll put the link in the description if you're interested in donating. That would be awesome. But this ride, I believe I've decided, I kind of tossed up, but I believe I've decided I'm going to take the state all road again. That's what I rode last year. I have a few additional upgrades to that bike. I also have the Salsa Fargo, but that's got the 29er wheels with 2.2, like more like cross-country race style tires on it. So I just, I mean, it's not a race. We're not trying to go fast. So I could ride the Fargo. It is probably the most comfortable bike I have. But I do have some friends that do this event, and they're road riders, and they like to cruise at, like 17, 18 miles per hour. So I might take the state for that reason, because I can cruise at a good 17, 18 mile per hour pace on that bike with 700C skinnier tires. I think they're 38s or whatever, the smooth middle. So that's what I'll do. I will probably do some updates, but I'm not sure how often or if I'm really going to do all that many updates. I actually have a friend who does this event, and she does shorts. And so I might just do that and do more TikTok focused shorts throughout the ride. And then usually when I do a TikTok short, or a TikTok video, I'll move it over to a YouTube short or whatever. So we'll see. Between now and then, I'm probably not going to do many videos aside from this one. I might get in like one how-to. I have a how-to that I want to do that I'm thinking about, or something. Or I might, if I get a chance to get to Monarch, I'll do a video on Monarch. Monarch is a trail that the trail's been open for a while, but they just did a whole bunch of cool redone work by Pathfinder, which is a company owned by Adam Buck, and they did some really cool stuff there. They just had their grand opening last Friday. If I get out there this week, that'll be awesome, and I'll do a video on Monarch before I leave for the MS-150. So after the MS-150, I really want to focus on getting this platform idea that I have for my airbag, because I'm sure some of you want to see the airbag. I mean, I bought it later last year. I got to ride it a couple times, but now what I'm realizing is I can't get the speed I want to hit it. And so I want to build a platform, and I'm thinking like maybe something 5 or 6 feet high in this area on my property that will allow me to roll in, get in a couple pedals, and then I'll have plenty of speed to hit the launch to jump on my airbag. I really want to get that set up because I like the idea of being able to jump onto my airbag and be able to get that kind of size jump and big jump safely, especially at my age, right? So it's just fun. I'm probably not going to be some major trickster, but if I get this set up, I'll definitely get some people that like to do tricks riding it, and I'll get footage of them and so on and so forth. So the airbag Yeah, it's been a while since I've had it on my channel, but I'll be doing those. I'm trying to figure out this platform thing. I'm really trying to get my friend Jason to help me, but I don't know. This is your call out, Jason, if you're watching this video. Yeah, calling you out. But yeah, it would be cool because it's kind of going to be this, 8 foot by 8 foot platform that I can have like a hip on it and a box jump, and then also be a launch platform for the airbag. And it's the idea right now, but it'd be really cool if I actually get it put in and can use it, and it'll kind of be the catalyst for doing a bunch of other stuff I want to do up at my property. So there's that. Timing, I don't know how long it's going to take me, so on and so forth. And I might be riding the airbag before I get this platform built. We'll see. But once I'm back from the MS-150, I'll start kicking off that effort to do that stuff up at my property. So, yeah, got that. Here's a quick clip of me hitting the airbag from last year. And lastly, I have these wheels. They're 29-inch wheels, all set up with micro spline, center lock, and they're 2.2 Sparwood tires. These are actually the same tires that are on my Fargo I just talked about, that I don't think I want to ride the MS-150 on these kind of tire. But these wheels, I'm going to put them on my Thai Hey Duke, because those are pretty burly. Because what's really coming down to this idea with my Thai Hey Duke is I did sign up for the Schwamigan 40 again this year, and I want a bike that's fast. And I feel like even though I have carbon wheels on this bike, I've got way too aggressive of a tire. These are 27.5 by 2.6. That's a pretty beefy tire for trying to do like a fast, race where it's mostly kind of gravel, dirt roads, things like that. There's some grass or whatever. I guess there might be some cases where this isn't going to be the best traction for that event. But what I want to do is I want to put these wheels on my Thai Hey Duke here soon and ride like some trails and see if they really make that big of a difference. Will they really be that much faster and smoother rolling and stuff like that for doing events and things like that? So it's kind of another one of those experiment things that I want to do, because the 29er thing is not something I'm really all that familiar with, but I do feel like running, bigger wheel with a smaller width tire and a lower tread or whatever is definitely going to be faster rolling. And honestly, these rims, because they're narrower rims also, they're not 30 millimeter internal width like the carbon ones. Those carbon rims are more of an enduro style rim. So these wheels are going to be about the same weight as the carbon ones, believe it or not. So give or take, a few ounces, but really close. And of course, with the much smaller tire, they're going to be overall lighter, because when you get those bigger tires, the tire adds a lot of weight. So these are going to be some faster rolling tires, and I want to do some experimenting with it. So that will be kind of my final experiment with that bike. And then of course I got this bike. I have a few other things I want to try. I've got the Geo Shift wolf tooth headset, so I can slack it another degree and try that out. I also have a 140 setting in the fork that I can try, things like that. So I got some more experimenting to do with that, because now that I've been riding that bike, I realize it really doesn't feel that slack, even though it's pretty slack. I think I measured it at, 73.5 degree head angle in its current configuration. That's pretty slack. So yeah, more experimenting to do with that bike. I really like how it rides in its current configuration. So I may do some of these experimental things, but there's a good chance that unless those things are like total game changers in how this bike rides, this bike will end up being back in this kind of configuration because I really like it, with the option of switching single speed really easily. And I'm also thinking of hitting some of those USA BMX mountain bike races at the BMX track with that bike too. So there you have it. I really do appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. That really helps me out. Peace.